video, I am going to discuss about shell mold casting process. See, before that, there are two types of casting process. Basically, expendable mold casting process and permanent mold casting process. So what is the difference between an expendable mold casting process and a permanent mold casting process? In the case of expendable mold casting process, after the casting is get solidified, the entire mold is breaking or destroying and the casting is taken outside. So each individual casting, there will be separate mold will be there. In permanent mold casting process, there is a permanent metal mold which is used for producing 1000 numbers of casting. So that's the difference between expendable mold casting and permanent mold casting. So example for expendable mold casting are sand casting, plaster mold casting, ceramic mold casting, shell molding, expanded polystyrene process, investment casting. So these all are expendable mold casting process. Then permanent mold casting process, slush casting, pressure casting, die casting, centrifugal casting, continuous casting, vacuum casting, all these are permanent mold casting process. So the difference between expendable mold and permanent mold casting process is, in expendable mold casting process, after the casting has been get solidified, the entire mold is breaking and the product is taken outside. So the entire mold is destroying for taking the casting outside. In permanent mold casting process, the casting process consists a permanent metal mold that is used for producing 1000 numbers of product. So that's the difference between expendable mold casting and permanent mold casting process. So first of all, we are going to discuss about shell mold casting process. Shell mold casting process, basically it is a expendable mold casting process. As it is a expendable mold casting process, the entire mold is breaking after the casting has been get solidified for taking the product outside. So the entire mold is, shell mold is destroying for taking the casting outside after solidification. So for each individual casting, there is a separate shell mold will be there. Okay. See, in shell mold casting, mold is made up of thin hardened shell of sand and thermostatic resin binder. That's the first important point. In shell mold casting process, the mold is made up of thin hardened shell of sand and thermostatic resin binder. See, the mold is made up of sand and thermostatic resin binder. Okay. So there are different steps in shell mold casting process. First one is preparation of pattern and sand. Second one is here rotating the dump box. Third one, formation of thin shell around the pattern. Fourth one, heating the pattern with the shell. Fifth one, removing shell from pattern, joining the shell, pouring molten metal, solidification. After solidification, the shell mold is breaking and the product is taken outside. So these are the different steps in shell mold casting process. So we can discuss one by one. So the first step is preparation of pattern and sand. See, in a shell mold casting process, the mold is made up of sand and thermostatic resin binder. Commonly using sand is green sand. Fine grain green sand is mixed with the thermostatic resin binder. So that sand mixture is used for preparing the shell mold. So special metal pattern, commonly shell mold making process, a metal pattern is used. See, this metal pattern is coated with a parting agent, typically silicone, which will later facilitate the easy removal of the shell. See, the pattern is initially heated to a temperature of 175 to 370 degrees Celsius. So this is the metal pattern and this is the sand mixture. Silica sand with thermostatic resin binder, and this is the metal pattern which is heated to 175 to 370 degrees Celsius, and top of the metal pattern the parting agent is sprayed for easy removal of the pattern from the shell. And after that, so initially prepare the sand mixture and metal pattern. That's the first step. In second step, the entire dump box is rotated to 180 degree. It will be rotated. So when the dump box is rotating, the sand mixture that will fall over the heated metal pattern. When the dump box is rotating, the sand mixture is fall over the heated metal pattern. So due to the reaction of thermostatic resin with the hot metal pattern, a thin shell forms on the surface of the pattern. See, when this sand mixture contact with the hot metal pattern, the thermostatic resin binder undergo chemical reaction with the hot metal pattern and a thin shell will be formed over the metal pattern. The thickness of the shell can be controlled by length of time the sand mixture is in contact with the metal casting pattern. If the time will be increasing, the thickness of the shell formed over the metal pattern will be gradually increased. So this is the second step. So third step, formation of thin shell around the pattern. So the box is again rotated to the original position. So when the box is again rotated to original position, the loose sand removed and leaving the shell and pattern. So when the box is rotating again to initial position, the loose sand that is not formed the shell is leaving the shell and metal pattern. So the leftover sand that will be falling in the bottom of the dump box. So in top, the pattern and shell will be produced. Fourth step, heating the pattern with the shell. Then in fourth step, the pattern along with the shell are placed in an oven for a short period of time, which cause the shell to harden over the casting pattern. That's the fourth step. The pattern along with the shell is heated in an oven, which is used to increase the strength of the shell. So in fifth step, removing the shell from the pattern. Hardened shell is separated from the casting pattern by the way of ejector pin. So you can see that the shell is ejected from the pattern by using some ejector pins. So this is the half of the shell mold. Sixth step, joining shell. Two of these hardened shell, each representing half of the mold for the casting, are assembled together either by gluing or clamping. So in the same way, other half will be producing, and these two half are joined by using a glue and provide some mechanical clamping methods. So that is the sixth step, joining the shell. And seventh step, pouring the molten metal. Shell mold is now complete, ready for pouring molten metal. Shell mold is supported by sand or metal shot during casting process. So into the shell mold, the molten metal is pouring. So this is a molten metal. And the eighth step, after solidification, the complete molten metal inside the shell mold is converted to solid state. So after solidification, the entire mold is breaking and the product is taken outside. So these are the different steps in shell mold casting process. Once more, the first step is preparation of sand mixture and pattern. Second step is rotating the dump box. Fourth step is formation of thin shell around the pattern. Fourth step is heating the pattern with the shell. Fifth step is removing shell from pattern. Sixth step is joining the shell. Seventh step is pouring molten metal. Eighth step is solidification of casting, breaking mold and taking the product outside. So what are the application of shell mold casting process? Shell mold casting process are used to make cylinder head, gear, bushing, connecting rod, camshaft and valve bodies. So these are the main application of the shell mold casting process, which is used to make cylinder head, gears, bushing, connecting rod, camshaft and valve bodies. Then what is the advantage of shell mold casting process? The internal surface of the shell mold is very smooth and rigid. This allows for an easy flow of the liquid through mold cavity during the pouring of casting. So internal shell of the shell mold is very smooth. That will allow easy flow of molten material into the shell mold. Shell mold process impart high dimensional accuracy tolerance of 0.010 inches. Shell mold casting can be easily automated. So these three are the advantages. Then disadvantage, shell mold are less permeable when comparing to sand mold. So a large volume of gas will be produced inside the shell mold and that will be carried with the molten metal during the casting process. So shell mold that should be ventilated before use. Expense of shell mold casting is increased by the cost of thermostatic resin binder. In shell mold casting process, thermostatic resin binder is used for preparing sand mixture. So the cost of the shell mold will increase by using thermostatic resin binder. So these are the application, advantage and disadvantage. So while you are studying shell mold casting process, you have to study all the step-by-step process along with the figure. So the figure is very important. So you have to study all the step-by-step figure, and also you have to study the one or two advantage and disadvantage and application. For every casting process, you have to study the step-by-step procedure, how the casting will be happening, and also you have to study one or two advantages, disadvantages and applications. Okay, so I am winding up in the video. So in this section we have discussed about two different classification of casting process, expendable casting process and permanent mold casting process, and we have discussed about the shell mold casting process. Thank you.